Don't let tax refund worries hold you back. File now with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
Domestic football returns, and nearly a fortnight after Manchester City won the Carabao Cup, it feels like it's been an absolute age for the next match to come along. However, then comes the realisation that it's a tricky tie with Liverpool in the FA Cup, and the opportunity to perhaps put the pressure on Arsenal will have to wait a little bit longer. That does mean, though, that City might need to keep the momentum going, making this weekend's match a tough one to navigate. We'll preview that on today's Blue Moon podcast, plus we'll hear from Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap shortly to give us the Liverpool perspective as well. The international break has also given us the opportunity to cast the net wider for talking points this week. We'll hear from Paul Clarke from the Man City Women Fancast as the women's team put themselves in a commanding position in the WSL and with a demolition of Manchester United at Old Trafford in the process. And as if to prove that the Blue Moon podcast listeners fit the City fan stereotypes, we're also taking a look at players who have scored braces and the 1996 relegation, all at your request. That's to come, but first, I'm David Mooney, and this week I am joined by City fan Ciaran Murray.
Hello.
And the football data writer at The Athletic, Thom Harris.
Hi, David.
Hello, Tom. Good to have you on. Ciaran, good to have you back. I'm going to start with this because Ciaran, Gigi Donnarumma says this week that he cried because of the enormous sadness of not being able to lead Italy to the 2026 World Cup. He made his senior debut for Italy at 17. He now won't play at the World Cup until he's at least 31. I just wanted to know, what have you had to wait bloody ages for?
Well, firstly, just before I answer that, at what age is Donnarumma in your head? Because if he has to wait 4 years until he becomes 31, like he looks about 42 already. Like, I can't believe 4 years' time he's only going to be 31. It's nuts.
He looks like me if I was older.
Yeah.
And I'm older than him. That doesn't make sense.
And your hair was thinning, and you'd had an incredibly heavy paper on. But like, compare him to Buffon, who retired at the age of 45 and had... So you're telling me what, Donnarumma's 27?
Yeah.
Buffon played for 28 years and retired at 45 and is just an absolutely fine specimen of a man. And, you know, still to this day is. So Donnarumma's age, like, no wonder he's upset. But what have I had to wait ages for? The thing that I always think about that really, really, like, drove my patience to, you know, as far as it could was, do you remember the WWF game Attitude on the PlayStation?
No,
1 or 2.
Never played it. Was never a wrestling boy, sorry.
Yeah, well, this was at the height, the Attitude Era, so it was at the height of, like, actually brilliant, like Stone Cold, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, blah, blah, blah. And this game was coming out, and they just delayed it. And me and our Aiden had just every magazine and every, like, hint of a preview of when it was going to drop. And it just kept getting pushed. So we were dying for it. I remember that. And then it came out, and I don't think either of us could admit till this day, really, that it was kind of shit. You know, it was really not a good game. So yeah, I always remember the sort of, like, that taught me a lesson, I think, about, you know, the anticipation followed by crushing disappointment.
Yeah, no, I get that. Did you cry because of the enormous sadness of it as well?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Aiden cried when I hit him with a steel shower a couple of times, like, but, in the game and real life.
Yeah, just to clarify. Tom, what have you waited ages for or cried? I mean, take your pick.
What a start.
Sorry, that's how things work here.
Yeah, I won't delve into my personal life, but not a lot of none of our listeners will know that I used to actually sit next to you, David, at the Etihad. So you will have seen me probably cry a few times.
Well, I didn't know whether to bring this up or not, because like I remember I read your piece when you joined the Athletic about how old you were when Elano's free kick was scored against Newcastle, and that meant that I did a little bit of mental maths, and you were the same age as I was when Aguero scored against QPR. You're the same age as I was when Dickoff scored against Gillingham.
Wow.
And my mum always talked about having seen this distraught little lad in Wembley that City were losing, and the look on your face when City were drawing 2-2 and losing 2-1 to QPR was exactly like, I understood what she meant. It was exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I've got the kind of happy end of the City years, I think, but there was still a few. I remember, must have been maybe 2008, Paul Scholes scored a last-minute winner at the Etihad. That absolutely gutted me because that was kind of, I had to face some music in school the next day.
That was the first time I kicked a chair in the Etihad that day, and really did my foot, and I ended up having to cry off from football the next night because I couldn't walk properly because I properly booted the chair. Anyway, let's ignore this and talk about Liverpool. Let's begin by bringing in Neil Atkinson for the Anfield Wrap. Hi, Neil.
Hello there. Listen, Donnarumma's one of those lads who, when he was 13, looked 26.
Yeah,
and it goes two ways for those lads. They either natural time catches up with them, and then when they're about 33, they look about 33, or they do what Donnarumma's doing, which is you just consistently stay ahead.
Yeah,
and there's no catching, and that's the direction Donnarumma's gone in.
Yeah.
A lot of footballers are the sort of footballer who, like, if you think about Wayne Rooney now, he now sort of looks his age, which is the age he looked when he broke through, and so slowly but surely time has caught up to Rooney.
Yeah.
And it's happened all the way through his adult life. Whereas Donnarumma he's not got any. He's not allowing that.
Yeah.
He's gonna look 68 when he's finally playing in the World Cup. Yeah. People are gonna say it's not fair.
Some reverse Benjamin Button stuff going on here, isn't there?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. Anyway, Neil, Liverpool. How important is this game for Liverpool, given how the season's gone so far? Because obviously there's the chase for top 4, top 5. PSG midweek. It's an interesting time.
Yes. How important is it? In theory, not particularly. In actuality, hugely. If we're crap, everyone's going to lose their minds. Absolutely lose their minds if Liverpool aren't very good, with Paris Saint-Germain on the horizon and the challenge that is being semi-competent within league football. So if Liverpool ultimately rock up at the Etihad and throw one in, then I think that it'll be bad for the manager. It'll be bad for the squad, and it'll be hugely bad for the fan base, because the entire season is just this head-wrecking sense of you don't know what Liverpool you're going to get, but you mostly back that they'll disappoint you and be poor in the last 20 minutes. And if that pattern repeats again in this one, then I just do think, we're not that short from people going genuinely insane, both online and in person. I think this is important. This is not an online thing now. There are a lot of people who are very, very angry watching Liverpool matches in person and finding them a really, really hard watch.
Yeah. On the flip side, Ciaran, City, obviously, the international break came at a really annoying time, having put in that performance against Arsenal and having just lifted the Carabao Cup. You kind of go, okay, let's build on this. Oh, I got to wait a week.
Yeah, that's it. Talking about that kind of like you don't know what you're going to get, and Neil's just brought up, like, it. I suppose it's been that way for City a lot of the time, and anytime you feel like momentum could be built upon, and the pathways open to catch Arsenal or to build a head of steam, it doesn't exactly kind of bear fruit. So then with the 2-week break, and you don't know how fresh or even talking about Donnarumma there, you don't know how not that he'll play, but you don't know how mentally kind of scarred or mentally kind of like impacted the players might be from the international.
It's a few years ago, wasn't it? Guardiola said after the game that he didn't pick Mahrez because Algeria had been knocked out of, was it the World Cup qualifiers or AFCON, or it was something like that, wasn't it? And he basically said that he was unhappy. He wasn't in the right frame of mind. Yeah.
So when it is such a crunch time of the qualifiers as well, people could be a bit hit and miss, and have to pick up knocks here and there. So yeah, you just. I think this season as a whole has been one of those where, for everybody, it's never felt like a cohesive one piece where the threads have all kind of ran through. Everybody's just been so hit and miss and up and down. Nobody's form has seemed like massively consistent. So then the fact that we're kind of, you feel like we're wanting to be let off the leash and kind of get at Arsenal again. And then we've had that massive break, and then the return is in the cup. So yeah, it's just really hard to know what way it's going to be. Maybe a good thing in that, like there's a sort of like easing our way back in, but also not really, because it's a massive game against an excellent team who causes challenges. So it could be a good thing to set us up going forward.
There's I know you work in data, Tom, and so I want you to calm everybody down by explaining why none of this matters, because City have never beaten Liverpool 3 times in a season, and the last time that City actually knocked Liverpool out of the FA Cup was 1973. 4 meetings in the FA Cup since then, but that doesn't matter, does it?
No, I mean, we've knocked them out of the Carabao Cup a couple of years ago, I seem to remember, at the Etihad.
That's crucially not the FA Cup, though, is it? That's the thing.
It's not, but it's a cup, so...
Straight after the World Cup as well, straight after the international break. I mean, the biggest possible international break.
Yeah, so I don't think it does matter, but, to Ciaran's point, I think that Arsenal game was, like, weirdly difficult to throw forward, not only because of what Ciaran's mentioned with the break, but I think it was a very specific game. I think the way City set up that 4-2-4, the 4 players kind of just blocking the passes into Rice and Zubimendi, City aren't going to do that again against Liverpool. I think that Liverpool are, too kind of adventurous with their build-up. That's not going to work. And I also think that Mamardashvili is likely to play over Alisson. So I think City are going to want to get at the goalkeeper a little bit and put him under a bit more pressure. So that's all kind of scrapped, I think, for the short term. But then also the second half, I thought the best thing about that Arsenal game was that 15 minutes after half-time, right? Because obviously there was the 2 goals. But I think the best thing about it was that City was so relentless in terms of winning the ball back straight away. They attacked, Arsenal won it back, and then City just collapsed back on Arsenal. It was often Rodri kind of winning the ball and keeping that pressure on. And we were allowed to do that because Arsenal were so passive. I think City have struggled to do that in the last kind of 5 years or so, because teams have got a little bit more athletic, a little bit more kind of strong and physical. Arsenal just didn't really offer any of that. And I think Liverpool are going to try and hit City on the break. They're going to look to Ekitike, Gakpo on the break. They're going to, Szoboszlai is very strong and end to end. Even Gravenberch can kind of stretch his legs after he's won a tackle and run away. So I think it's going to be a very different game. I think it's going to be a lot more end-to-end. It's going to be a lot more chaotic than the Arsenal game was. So in that respect, how do you kind of derive any meaning from that final? But I do think City are in good shape. We'll have to see how the players come out, but I think City now more than ever are in the kind of, with the likes of Semenyo, with O'Reilly up and down, Haaland, Donnarumma making big saves. He obviously won't be there on the weekend. I think City are more prepared to kind of win these end-to-end games. So I think it just depends on, physicality, kind of athletic state, and whether the players are up for it.
Yeah. Now, Neil, you said you can kind of guarantee that Liverpool will let you down in the last 20 minutes. Does that game that we played out at Anfield a few months ago, does that sum up what's happening with Liverpool right now? Because when you think of example. We think of what City are. City don't go to Anfield and turn around a 1-0 deficit, and yet this season they did do.
Yeah, it's a really good example of Liverpool. There's been a lot made of Liverpool conceding goals in injury time, but Liverpool have also conceded a lot of goals post-80. Liverpool aren't very fit. It's still people don't like bringing it up, but it is worth saying that Liverpool's pre-season was deeply disrupted by the tragic passing of Diogo Jota, and Liverpool have not got to grips with that over the course of the campaign. It's at no point have Liverpool clawed that back, and one of the reasons why is that pretty relentlessly Liverpool have played a game every 3 or 4 days. There was only really a couple of breaks in February where Liverpool were able to actually have full weeks to prepare back for games, and they didn't do particularly well with that time, and there was some time off also given to the players within there as well, which I think is also part of the aftermath of the Jota situation. So Liverpool have just never, right the way through the season, just have not looked fit. And then on top of that, you've had the manager trying to get fitness into players. There's a run of 2 games Liverpool lose against Chelsea and Manchester United, 2 sides that were now competing for top 5, where he starts Isak and McAllister, and neither of them are fit. And he's picking them both to try to get some match fitness into them, and we lose both matches. McAllister emphatically at the scene of the crime in both games. Isak just not involved in any meaningful sense in either game. He gets an assist for Gakpo's equaliser against Chelsea, but he can't really impact the match in any way, shape or form. But he's picked to start both of those ahead of Ekitike, and McAllister's picked to start both of those games ahead of probably Curtis Jones in the middle of the park. I can't quite remember which.
Has there been kind of a problem with like consistency of selection then in that case? Because we always think of Guardiola as someone who will always kind of tinker with the team and move things around here and there, but he feels like he's got his core of kind of what he wants to do and his core principles set up, but it kind of sounds like Slot doesn't.
No, I think Slot's got consistency of selection. It's just that it's ultimately the players that he wants to select consistently have played really poorly over the course of the season. So the goalkeeper, who is still capable of being absolutely brilliant, hasn't been consistently 8, 9 out of 10 like he has in previous years. He's whacked in the odd 5 here and there, though in a way he's the least of the problems. Van Dijk has been good, but has often had a bit too much to do and has therefore been found wanting. He's probably at the scene of the crime for Liverpool's most irritating moments of the season, which is when he gifts the opening goal against Bournemouth by kicking it into the lad's face, who then manages to control it with said face, rolls it back, and Joe Gomez gets injured in the same passage of play that Bournemouth go 1-0 up, and then Liverpool are trying to sub Gomez to bring Endo on at the point at which Bournemouth then go 2-0 up. So Van Dijk was responsible in one act for injuring his teammate and 2 goals being conceded de facto.
I'm sorry, but controlling the ball with said face is possibly one of the funniest things that's been said on this.
Alex Scott managed it. He did a really good job of it. He kept his cool. We've all been hit in the face by the ball. Your reaction is to go,
it hurts, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Instead, it's horrible. And instead, he managed to pull it back. But Van Dijk, on the whole, has been of last season's key performers. He's probably been the strongest. There's just 1 or 2 moments where you're quite surprised by his decision making. But I think that's because he has so many decisions to make because of the issues elsewhere. Konate's had a hugely inconsistent season. When he's good, he's absolutely brilliant. But when he is bad, he is the essence of horrid and has cost Liverpool points quite directly over the course of the campaign. There's been no consistency whatsoever at right back because of huge injury issues that still continue into this one against Manchester City. So that's been a problem for us as well. And then you can move forward. McAllister's had a really frustrating season. He's never been physically that imposing. He's always had to use his brain and his competitive spirit, but he is just that one notch below. So if you're not quite physically imposing in the first place and then you're consistently one notch below, then he's struggled. Salah's had his struggles, which have been well documented over the course of the season, and Gakpo's been less good. That's a lot of the players who were last season very good to Salah's genuinely, utterly outstanding in a title-winning season. And for that many of them to have underperformed over the course of the campaign is why Liverpool have ended up where they've ended up. There's other issues around that. There's not a lot of strength and depth in the squad. Liverpool made a big gamble in the summer, which has also been compounded by what happened to Diogo Jota. But Liverpool made a big gamble in the summer to slim the squad down, I think, to build it back up across the next couple of windows. But that's ultimately bitten them. And it's one of those years where everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. That said, they're still in 5th place. They're still in the Champions League and they're still in the FA Cup. They've managed to limp to this position. And I want the manager to come out with the attitude of, as mad as this sounds, season starts now, boys. Everything, Liverpool's minimum requirements is still possible and Liverpool's outrageous dream is still possible. But to do it, a lot's got to improve very, very quickly. And that's what is difficult. And as part of that, this is where the manager's ended up feeling a little bit problematic because, my God, he doesn't seem worn down. He feels like a man who's been in a lot of wars over the course of the campaign and is sort of just trying to hold himself together. He doesn't, to me at least, evoke the idea of being able to get them all back in big team meeting today after the international break and say, right, lads,
here's
now
what's going to happen.
We attack the end of this season. He doesn't quite seem to have that vibe himself at this point. There's a lot of things go wrong, and then post-match he goes, well, as ever, they scored with the first shot, which is not what supporters really want to hear. They want to hear, I'm sick of people scoring with the first shot. This is what we're going to do about it. Yeah. Instead, he very much goes, well, what are we all meant to do when they score with the first shot? And he's got legitimate, we can see the last minute equaliser to Fulham when Harrison Reed scores a goal from God. And afterwards in an interview, brilliantly is asked, do you score many of them in training? And he goes, nope. So So, there are legitimate moments of Liverpool this season where there is hard luck and there's there's the underlying stuff and all that sort of thing. But you'd just like a little bit more of the manager maybe being a bit more delusional.
Yeah.
Ultimately being a bit more delusional and a bit scrappier. And instead what he's doing is acceding to stark reality week in, week out, which is rubbish.
You see stats pop up all the time about clubs and players, and you want to know that exact thing about City. There's an answer. Statscity.co.uk. Want to find out all of the players who played alongside club legends like David Silva, Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany? Or maybe you'd like to know which team found it hardest to score past Joe Hart. You can find out City's record in every competition, at every stadium, and under every manager. Just go to statscity.co.uk and browse away. That's statscity.co.uk.
Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
LinkedIn's AI-powered job search can help you find the most relevant roles based on your goals and experience. It cannot help you find something to talk about in the elevator.
So, ride any dragons this weekend?
It can help you find your next job just by describing it in your own words. It cannot stop your coworker from describing their dreams.
So I was flying, right?
And while we can't help you advance in the office foosball tournament, LinkedIn can help you advance in your career. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Get a dollop of City nostalgia every Monday. Sign up at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
How much of there is there of a danger that City could do their thing this season of having a really, really good performance against Arsenal in the cup final and then chucking in a bit of a damp squib the week after?
Yeah, I think that is a genuine possibility. I think for the reasons that I said before, this is going to be a difficult game in terms of very different from the Arsenal one. And I think Liverpool, for all the weaknesses that Neil has just outlined there, they do have a lot of threat on the counter-attack. And I think that is ultimately what has been City's downfall, particularly last season. This season too, they've been better. I think they've strengthened up and added a lot of, like I was saying, physicality, athleticism, but there are still moments when they can just get hit on that break. And what Neil was just saying there about the first shot on target, that is very reminiscent, I think, as well for City over these last couple of weeks, because last couple of years even, because it just seems to happen a lot, doesn't it? Let's
not even go back to the Claudio Bravo years, where I think there was a period of about 6 months where pretty much every shot he faced went in. Yeah,
absolutely. But that happens because I think obviously City, they try and dominate possession, they try and pen the opposition in, and then if they concede a chance, it's probably going to be a big one, right? Because you're going to have 3 or 4 players racing out of that defensive structure and then causing you damage at the other end. And I think that's where Liverpool will look to hurt City. But yeah, like I said, I'm just feeling quite bullish about this one. I think, Semenyo, Haaland, these are the kind of players who can cause a lot of damage in these more end-to-end games, and I'm hoping that's the way it'll go.
Yeah. Ciaran, how much of it, I was going to say, kind of like, normally at this point for the previews, we talk about which players you want to see here and there. But as kind of Tom's getting into there, it feels really settled for City at the minute. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of changes to be made in this City lineup. Feels like he'll start Semenyo, he'll start Doku, he'll start Haaland, and like Rodri will start. Maybe the only question mark is, well, it's not even a question mark because Diaz is injured, so it's not going to be Diaz or Kusanov alongside Guehi. It's going to be Kusanov and Guehi. It feels like this team is settled at the minute.
Yeah, and I think another nice thing has been that the previous game was a big cup game, and now we've got another one. So Trafford will even have a bit of consistency, which will be nice and settled. I think it's been well documented that a lot of people are pushing for him to be the number one. Nobody really wants him to leave. So having an opportunity he played so well against Arsenal and kept a clean sheet, and then his next test now is against Liverpool. So can something similar happen, and can he prove himself even further? To be in with a shout at number one. So I mean, that's the only kind of thing that might unsettle.
O'Reilly or Ake maybe as well. Not Ake, sorry, Aït-Nouri.
Do you mean at left back and just play Nico O'Reilly in midfield kind of thing? You're not saying drop him?
Yeah,
so
take your pick. Yeah, take your pick. Because I always think City look a better team with Nico O'Reilly in it. It's just whether he starts in midfield or at left back, and it doesn't really matter whether you pick him in midfield or left back, and you've got the option of Aït-Nouri there, I guess.
Yeah. I thought you were insinuating there that we drop him as if he's had some sort of howler in the last game, but.
Yeah, should have scored 3. Yeah, should have scored 3, so he couldn't do a feature on braces.
I suppose that is it. Yeah, I mean he's been phenomenal in midfield, hasn't he? He's been phenomenal, anywhere you put him, including in the 6-yard box, it seems. So it might be a nice, interesting experiment to see how he would cope, up against Liverpool's midfield. Although he quite famously sort of talked about how he had Salah on toast earlier on this season. Was it this season? Or he just said, I knew what I had to do against him and I did it. Like as if it was no problem. And I know, and Neil's talked about the well documented sort of dropping off of form of Salah, but it was just nice to see the confidence, and it would be nice to see that sort of battle maybe taking place. But
I'm always amazed by footballers' ability to not think I'm tempting fate here.
I know, especially isn't he aware of typical City? So yeah. It is. It's nice to have such a settled squad, and it's also nice because I believe earlier in the season, sort of autumn winter time, it was just the same 11 all the time. Maybe dipping into one or two others, and that was due to mainly Pep's trust issues and also injury. But now we've got a much fuller squad who are available, but still there is trust. But it doesn't seem to have unsettled anybody. The right players seem to be playing the right times. The worry is sort of impact off the bench isn't always there when you look at that, but as a whole I think everybody warrants their starting place, and people like Foden, for example, know they need to play themselves into form, so when they come off the bench they need to make that impact, and if they don't they'll be on the bench still. But that's led to a more settled kind of starting 11 / the one or two extras who come in.
I think Liverpool will play 4-2-2-2 is my thing. I don't think Salah will play in a wide area. I think it'll be effectively he'll play as a narrow centre forward alongside Ekitike, with the two of them sort of playing in the gap between full back and centre back. And I think then it'll be Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. I hope Curtis Jones. Probably McAllister instead is a little box 4, especially because City themselves love to play so narrow. And Joe Gomez probably starts at right back. That's what I think Liverpool will do. So I think Salah will almost have no fixed abode, moving around and looking to sort of find whatever the areas are there. And Liverpool looking to be sort of quite strong. And then that also gives Liverpool a sub in attack, which they just haven't had that often this season. So Gakpo becomes a sub. There's the possibility Isak is available. Rio and Moa might get to play a part in this, which he wouldn't normally do in any league game, and sort of go from there. Liverpool have also got PSG on the horizon. Obviously, I presume Alexis McAllister's travelled 1 million miles to play football for Argentina. So, I think that might be smart, but managers just love to pick McAllister. It doesn't matter how sluggish he looks. Managers like to have a manager on the pitch. So I wouldn't pick him, and there's been a lot of times this season when I wouldn't pick him, but I expect the Liverpool manager will.
Yeah. Well, we'll do predictions shortly, but Neil, if you could hang on there a second, because I'd like to get your thoughts on this next bit as well, and the reasons will become clear, because with the international break, I asked if there was a completely blank canvas for today's show, what would people enjoy hearing about? Now, we had a lot of suggestions, but there were 2 topics that came back more than any other. One was a look at how the women's team were doing this season, which we'll get onto a bit later on, and from the other, I can only assume that everyone listening is a glutton for punishment. These weren't the only people who got in touch about this, but Andrew asked if we'd be doing a 30th anniversary documentary documentary on the 1996 relegation since we did the 25th anniversary shows on the 1999 and 2000 promotions. And Colin asked if City's relegation in 1996 fits the bill of the best team to go down in light of Tottenham's predicament this year. So don't blame me for this. You lot asked for this. We're going back to 1996. Summer 1995, and it's all change at Manchester City. After a 17th place finish the year before, which was 2 positions and 4 points above the relegation zone in a 2014 Premier League, the chairman sacked manager Brian Horton to go in a new direction. We spoke to Horton on the podcast about that period back in 2011.
It wasn't just above the relegation zone. We were never in relegation trouble. So I don't want to hear that word really, because we weren't. I think had we beat QPR on the last Saturday and we lost 1-0 to a poor goal, I think we'd have finished above halfway. It looked poor in the end, and we'd been better than that, because I think at Christmas we were 6th in the league, and you can sense it. You know, I mean, I've been in football long enough to know when things like that are going to happen, and chairman won't give you any more money to buy players, then you know it's inevitable.
Horton was replaced by Alan Ball, who did nothing to change the fortunes. The 1994-95 season ended with 4 wins in the final 25 Premier League games. Under Ball, the 1995-96 season began with no wins in the first 11. In the calendar year of 1995, City won just 8 out of 40 league matches, and if anything, the change of manager made things worse. Ray Ingram made his league debut under Alan Ball.
Alan was different to what we had before. He used to, obviously he's a World Cup winner, so he used to speak about winning the World Cup. He had his fans and he had his critics really. He was good for me because he gave me my debut, but I think a few of the older pros, I kind of lost them quite early on because he kind of used to talk down to him. I don't think that went down very well within the dressing room, especially with the older players.
Remarkably though, City weren't as dead and buried as they seemed to be. Despite having just 2 points and having scored only 3 goals in 11 games, they almost stayed up. Kit Symons arrived that summer.
Well, the first game, I mean, we played Tottenham at Main Road and drew 1-1, and I thought, we're sort of quite a competitive side. We seemed like there was a decent nucleus of senior players there, but yeah, like I say, pretty much after that, it was a real slog, and obviously we didn't win for 12, 13 games, whatever it was in the end. I can't remember, and it was very, very tough. It's hard to turn it around, but like you say, the form did improve over the second half of the season, and the actual results more importantly, but obviously not quite enough.
By way of comparison, Wolves this season had 2 points after their opening 11 matches and are currently well off the pace. That 2007-8 Derby side, which got the lowest points total ever, had 6 points after playing 11. While the 2021 Sheffield United side, which had the same record as that 1996 City team, they were relegated with a month of the season still to go. City took it to the final day.
This team was made up for attacking football, and the manager changed it. The difficulties started because the players got a little bit lost on the way, didn't know which system we played, didn't know the rules, specific rules on the pitch, and we still had the chance to survive till the last day of the season, and unfortunately it didn't happen, and that relegation was the lowest point in my playing career.
That's the former City striker Uwe Rosler. He scored a penalty on that final day to get City back into the game. It was against Liverpool at Main Road, and for the away side, the game was a complete dead rubber. They were definitely finishing third, while City needed to get a better result than one of Southampton or Coventry to stay up. They could also catch Sheffield Wednesday, but that would need the Owls to have lost and City to have won. David James was playing for Liverpool that afternoon.
Last game of the season, I think we were pretty much getting ready to go on holiday. It sounds very unprofessional, but I think we didn't have anything to play for that time. We'd already won the League Cup and realised that City were in a bit of bother.
And yet, Liverpool were 2-0 up at half-time. Rosler's penalty on 71 minutes made it 2-1, before Kit Symons equalised soon after. Then word got around that a draw was enough for City to survive.
There was a memory of Steve Lomas keeping the ball in the corner to waste time and run the clock down, and then Niall Quinn running down the touchline and telling them that they needed to score. which I have to say we found wildly amusing afterwards. But obviously for City and City fans, it was nothing amusing about it at all.
That also meant for Simons that, for a while at least, he thought his goal had been enough to keep City up.
Somehow we were getting information was being fed to the manager to get fed onto the pitch that a draw was enough for us. Because I remember, everyone's seen the Stevie Lomas sort of killing time on the touchline, trying to run the clock down, when the reality of it was we needed to score another goal. We needed to win the game to stay up. It was horrific, I know that. And obviously at the final whistle then, I can't remember one of the games, I think it was a Coventry one, was a delayed kickoff. So we're sitting in the tunnel at Main Road, and then obviously we got the news that the result hadn't gone our way and we were relegated.
There's a long way to go this season for Tottenham, and their fortunes might change in the next 6 weeks or so, but they're certainly in the running to be one of the biggest Premier League relegations. As for that 1996 City team, perhaps they are the biggest to fall, given some of the names in the squad and the quality that they'd shown in previous years. But it's also true that the club had been sliding towards the trapdoor for a little while before actually falling through it. Mind you could probably also say the same for Spurs, if that happens to them next month as well. What maybe overshadows City's relegation in 1996 and makes people forget what a big story it was at the time is that things went on to get a lot worse for the club in the remainder of the 1990s.
Hi, my name is Uwe Rösler, former Manchester City player. You listen to the Blue Moon podcast.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, Ciaran, you grew up in Ireland, where I imagine this was a difficult time to get to see City. Tom, as we've already mentioned, you're lucky enough to be young enough that you weren't born when this game happened. So, all of that said, does City's relegation in 1996, Ciaran, have a claim to the tag of the biggest Premier League club that to go down? And if Spurs were to go down this season, would they eclipse it?
Yes to both, I think. With City's squad, when you look at it from back then, it was pretty decent in some ways, Rosler and Quinn and Kincladze, you don't think to yourself when you have that nostalgia, or just even kind of like seeing online or hearing from those who were there and kind of maybe had more of a first-hand kind of closer look. They seemed like great players and seemed like there was a cohesion and an identity. So it seems strange with the sort of size of the club and aspirations.
Because the only other competitors, I guess, really would be kind of Newcastle, Aston Villa, those sorts of institutions that have gone down as well.
Yeah.
But as you say, that City team was stacked. I mean, Neil, we heard from David James in the piece there about how Liverpool just found it funny that City were time wasting on the final day, and then found out that it wasn't enough to stay up. What do you remember about it? Were you there? Do you remember anything about this game?
I wasn't there, but the big thing I remember about the game is that it's Ian Rush's last game in the league for Liverpool. So Rushy's going to finish his Liverpool career. He's captain at this point, and he's going to leave at the end of the season. So I remember listening to it on the radio, actually, because Rush scores to make it 2-0 to Liverpool. There's a lot of Liverpool context in this game and in City's relegation when I had a little look back. So this is the season of Liverpool's 4-3 against Newcastle, which is much vaunted, etc., the greatest game, all that sort of nonsense, which I do think is nonsense. But it was obviously a hugely dramatic game. And what everyone forgets about it, everyone remembers that Newcastle were challenging United for the title, but everyone forgets that Liverpool had a legitimate interest in the title that day. So Liverpool, when they win, they put themselves 6 games to go, 5 points behind United. better goal difference as well, to point out, than both United and Newcastle. So that was really significant. And Liverpool had won the previous week in the FA Cup semi-final 3 days before that Newcastle game. And then to pull this together from your point of view, Liverpool go to Highfield Road and get beat 1-0 by Coventry and are abject, absolutely abject after that Newcastle game.
If you'd just done something in that game, a point on the last day would have been enough. Yeah.
And we needed to win. We needed to win. When we fail to win, it effectively is us declaring in the title. And we beat Newcastle that 4-3, and we only win 2 more games between then and the end of the season. When I said there was 6 to go, if Liverpool had kicked on after the Newcastle 4-3, and all narrative in football tells us you win 3-0 in a cup semi-final, and then you win, in inverted commas, the greatest game. Well, you'd expect that from there. Your attacking prowess comes to bear. And as it is, not only do they fail to beat Coventry, but they only scored 2 goals in 2 other games between then and the end of the season, and one of those is this one against City. So it's Russia's last match for Liverpool, and it's become a really poor end to this Liverpool season. The next game we're going to play is the FA Cup final, where we infamously wear the white suits, and we get beat 1-0 by Man United in a terrible game. So all round, if we were engaging in some sort of conspiracy to really ruin the lives of Manchester City supporters, we couldn't have done a better job than we nail in this.
You're not going to win the misery stakes on this one. I think wasting time by the corner flag to safely go down is one of those things that only City can conspire to do. I mean, Tom, I mentioned that you're lucky enough to not have been around when this was going on. What's it all like from your perspective? Because you know City as you know City from before the takeover. But what's your impression of what City were in the 90s?
Well, I've heard a lot from my uncle, who was the one who kind of dragged me along to support City in the first place. There seems like there was some fun times at Main Road, but it does seem very, not anything that I've kind of been used to. The worst I got was Stuart Pearce when we failed to win a kind of... Was it January onwards we didn't win?
Failed to score. Yeah, January to May, didn't score a single goal at home. Yeah. But there was also, wasn't there one where City won the league and then got relegated in the next season? Or am I?
30s,
1930s.
In the 30s, yeah. Okay, so a bit too early for everyone here, I think. But that's all I've got.
Donnarumma remembers it well.
He does. Right, charity bet time. Nobody got the prediction correct for the cup final, so the total for the Man City fans food bank support group stays at £460 for the season. William Hill is giving us 3 £10 correct score singles to try and improve that. The food bank group will be collecting again on Saturday morning before the game, up until about 12:15, so go and see them with a donation if you can. Let's get some predictions in then. So we will start with our guest. Neil, what are you having for this one?
City 3-2. I think it'll be a good game. I think there'll be chances for both sides. I think City will have more strength in the last sort of 20 minutes of the game. There'll be some talk of Isak and all that nonsense, but he'll be nowhere near fit enough. So I think City will just have a little bit too much. I think it'll be a good game. I genuinely do think it'll be a good game. I think everyone could do with it being a good game, because if we're all honest about it, so much of the football's been appalling. It'd be quite nice if you actually got a game where 2 sides went, you know what, this is a cup game, it's a quarter-final.
Let's have a go at each other.
We might as well enjoy it. We might as well enjoy it a little bit. And I think that's Liverpool's best chance, is to enjoy it. And I think it also sets Liverpool up for the challenges that are to come if they show a bit. So, I'm going to sort of err on the side of City are at home. And I just feel as though City will just have a little bit too much as it wears on. So 3-2.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree, if the football's been crap over the course of the season for everybody, it's all Arsenal's fault. 16-1 and £160 if you're right. Tom, let's go over to you. What are you having for this one?
Yeah, very similar logic, but I kind of think City kind of pull away a bit later on and make it 3-1. So that's what I've gone for.
Yeah, 3-1 is 11-1 and £110. Ciaran, what are you having?
2-2.
You're not even going to explain yourself? You're just going to go straight in there with a 2-2?
Sometimes I feel nervous about explaining myself, because then when the complete opposite happens, I just look like I've got egg on my face all over. But
I'm sorry, but this is like, nobody is expecting you to be clairvoyant here. Nobody's expecting you to go, yes, I know exactly what's going to happen. I can predict the future.
Sometimes it's like a self-embarrassment when you go, fucking hell, a mile off there. Like, 2-2 just seems to me a classic City-Liverpool score in recent seasons. And that sort of not knowing what you're going to get just after international break. to 12:45 kickoff. Just everything seems to be that way. And I know we're kind of going to discuss braces on the show as well, so it just all seemed a bit like I'll go for a bit of a, what do you call it, two little ducks or whatever. A Desmond.
A Desmond, yeah. Two little ducks is bingo for it's bingo for 22, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ciaran absolutely desperate for some extra time. Get his value for money for his ticket. That is 11-1 and 110 quid if you're right. Remember, you've got to be 18 or over to gamble. Prices can change. And for information on responsible gambling, take a look at gambleaware.org. Neil from the Anfield Wrap, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having us as ever.
Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap. Now, the second question we were asked a lot is if we could do something on how the women's team are getting on this season, given their commanding position at the top of the WSL, that they have an FA Cup quarter-final on Monday, and that they've just beaten United 3-0 at Old Trafford as well. So I've been speaking to Paul Clarke from the Man City Women Fancast.
Well, they've been looking healthy for some time, as you rightly say. We had a run of 13 games without defeat, up until about February, where we just, we ran away essentially with the league. We're now 9 points clear of Chelsea, which is unbelievable. It's unheard of in WSL terms. WSL tends to be quite tight at the top. We're 9 points clear of them. We're 11 points clear of Arsenal. We've got 2 points, 2 games in hand. So, the reality is it's in our hands now. We have just got to win 2 games out of the last 3 and we're champions. We don't have to worry about anyone else. Just do what we're doing and we're champions. And, that's the second time in 10 years, which frankly isn't really good enough given the amount of resources and players we've had. But this season has been a sea change in how the team have played, and we're seeing that in the results and sitting well clear at the top.
Yeah, I was going to say what's changed because, as you say, 2016 they won the WSL, and I think a lot of people would have expected City to have been there or thereabouts for the time in between, but it's just not been something that City have done in the last 10 years.
Well, in fairness, we have been there or thereabouts most seasons. We lost the title on goal difference one season, and we've had Chelsea being dominant for 6 or 7 seasons, so it's been tricky. It's a bit like City men being so dominant in the men's game, Chelsea being dominant, but we've been there or thereabouts. But I think what's happened this season, we've got a new manager, we've got some new players, and the word I've been using to people about what Andre Jagles has been doing is freedom. He's given the players the freedom to play. Top class, world class professionals go over the white line and play to this, the way that I want you to play. But if it's not working, change it. Take responsibility.
Try something.
Yeah, exactly. And, when you think about the players that we've got in the team, Alex Greenwood, who's playing left back because Jade Rose has come into the team from Canada and looks like she's been there for a decade. She's playing left back. You've got Yui Hasegawa, probably the best midfielder in the world, just won the Asia Cup. And you've got Bunny Shaw, which I think a lot of people in this podcast will be familiar with because she's been banging goals in fun 19 again this season. She's got so many shots on target, and she's developed her game this season. Really, her movement, the way she bullies defences, that's made a big difference. And of course, we've had Vivian Miedemar come back to full fitness. So there's been a lot of changes, but for me, it's that idea of freedom to express yourself. And when you've got 136 shots on target in one season and you've scored 55 goals and only conceded 15, that tells you why you're top of the league.
Yeah, and you look at that league table as well. The only stat there that City are not better in the rest of the league in is goals against, where Arsenal are doing better. But Arsenal, as you say, they've played 2 games fewer. So City have really the numbers just show the dominance this season.
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you score a lot of goals, you don't want to concede a lot of goals either. And I think what we've had this season is a very settled back four, which we hadn't had in the past. We've had a lot of injuries. One of the things that I think those that aren't familiar with, Man City Women haven't sort of endured the last 3 or 4 seasons. We've had terrible injuries. At some points we've had Rico Lewis's 16-year-old sister sitting on the bench because just to make the numbers up. We've had 3 goalkeepers sat on the bench at one point to make the numbers up. This season we've managed to avoid that, and we've got the other big difference I think this season is squad depth. You know, our bench used to be a bit threadbare. Now you're bringing on Sidley Lohman, Grace Clinton. You're bringing on those sort of players. Where in the past we were bringing on kids and academy kids. Now we're bringing on full internationals. So I think that's been a big difference this season. So you're right. You know, Arsenal are tighter than us at the back, but we've had a solid back four. I mean, Kirsten Kasperai, who is probably another player people may be familiar with, she's been the best right back in the league and possibly in Europe. She's just been brilliant this season. You know, Jade Rose has come in, first season in WSL. Looks like she's been playing WSL for forever. And then you've got Alex Greenwood at left back and Rebecca Knack, who's basically forced her way back into the Germany side when no one thought she would ever get a cap. So that's been a big difference. And you've got Hammer as a goalkeeper, who's just brilliant. You know, she's a Japanese #1 goalkeeper, and she's made a big difference because everyone knows in football, whether it's men or women, you start from the back. If you keep us solid, then everything works from there. And we've got, you know, one of the best keepers in the world. So it's just been a brilliant exhibition of defensive player this season.
Yeah. You talk about being in a commanding position for the WSL title. 3 games left, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, and then West Ham away. How are you feeling?
One of the things that I think's really been true over the last 3 or 4 seasons is the standard of the WSL has increased. When I first started watching women's football, the top 3 or 4 teams would usually batter the teams at the bottom of the league. Now, any team, like the Premier League, any team on the day can beat the top teams, the so-called top teams. City obviously being the top team because they're top of the league. But for me, you would argue that the Manchester United derby was the hardest of the 3. But given that United was so pathetic on the day, it was actually the easiest one-sided derby we've ever had against United. I think the really tricky tie is Brighton away. They're a very good side, well organised, with some good players. Frank Kirby is one of their players, you know, some very good talent down there. So that's going to be a tricky tie. But it would be lovely to beat Brighton because then we could win the title at home against Liverpool, against our old manager, in front of our own fans. So I'm feeling quietly confident, but I think most City fans now are saying, City women's fans are saying, it's one cup final at a time. It's a cliche, I know, but it's true. We're just taking it one game at a time. If we do what we need to do and we play the way we've been playing this season, we'll get those 6 points and win the title.
Yeah, and as you say, Gareth Taylor at Liverpool. What do you think has changed since his departure? Because he left in 2025. They had Nick Cushing back as interim till the end of that season. Is it just been a fresh start this season? Is that what it's been?
I think there was always a mixed sort of feelings about Gareth Taylor. I wasn't one of the people who particularly wanted him out. I think he was very unlucky with injuries over his time there. I think if he'd had a better injury record, he might well have won the title himself. And he was a decent manager. I think what's different this season with Andre is I think Andre is a really good people manager. I think the women talk about him having an open door policy and being very supportive of listening to not only their professional issues but also issues about what's going on in their lives and be very supportive about that. I think tactically he's very astute. He set them up to be a very attacking team. And I think he's also someone who understands the relationship between the club and the fans, and that's been a really positive thing this season. So I think it's just that difference in, as I said earlier, it's that freedom thing. I think it's given more freedom to express themselves and to manage it on the field. I mean, all managers talk about when you send them over the white line, what can you do? But you've got to trust those world-class players to think, oh, this isn't working today, we'll just switch it up. He's also had the benefit this season of being able to bring on really good players from the bench. And of course, when you bring on impact players like Caroline, for instance, or Mary Fowler, who's a world-class young player who can't even get in the team at the moment, Grace Clinton's a fringe player, that makes a big difference because you can say, I can mix it up now. It's not quite working. I'll put some impact players on and see what happens.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Bunny Shaw before. We need to touch on her because her numbers are frankly ridiculous for the game. I mean, are you surprised? We got through a Manchester derby where City absolutely battered United, and she wasn't on the score sheet.
Well, it's funny if you watch games where she doesn't score. What she does do is cause mayhem. She absolutely bullies defences. You know, when she started at City, she was a really good striker. You know, an out-and-out striker. You knew she's going to score goals. She's big. She's fast. She's powerful. You know she's going to get on the end of stuff. But what has happened? And Sean Gorter was I think really a really big part of this. They've worked on her game in terms of her movement, how she moves defenders around. So if she doesn't get a goal, it's because she's moved the centre halves to out of position, or she's bullied a right back or left back, or she's got onto something, held it up, and Vivian Miedema can come onto it from sitting in the 10 position. So her all round game is exceptional now. You know, she's gone from being a really, really just out and out striker to being the complete package in the women's game, and it's no surprise she scores so many goals. But for those of us who watch it on a regular basis, when she doesn't score, we can see what she's doing in really, running defences ragged. Because, she's a nightmare to defend because she's quick, she's clever, she moves really well, and she's powerful. So when she gets onto a ball, if she's running onto a ball, she's going to shrug you off. You're not going to bring her down. She's going to shrug you off. But she's a really intelligent player. And, if she's not in the running for the Ballon d'Or in the women's game, what do you have to do to win that award?
Yeah, quite. We need to butt around a bit and talk about the derby because, in terms of a Manchester derby, it was you expect it maybe to be a bit more competitive than it was ultimately because it's derby day. You want to put up a bit of a fight, and City just swept United aside at Old Trafford.
Well, it was shocking how bad United were. But it's one of those things. It's one of those. Were we good or were they bad? Well, I think it's a bit of both. We were really good. I think we sniffed blood from minute one. Alex Greenwood had a shot on target that pulled, and Tullis Joyce made a great save in the first minute. And from that minute on, United were just anonymous. I think they had one or two shots on target, and frankly, those shots I could have saved. They were powder puff shots. They didn't have a clear-cut chance all game. They were completely overrun in the midfield. I mean, poor old Jess Parker, who's had a good season, one of our old players, we just didn't know what to do, because we were just so on it. It was a totally one-sided affair. It could have been 6 or 7. I mean, we scored 3. We had one disallowed, which is like a mystery goal disallowed. No one's quite understanding how that happened. We had 3 or 4 other decent chances, and frankly, I think United fans were glad to see the back of us because by the end of it, it was like watching football in a library. I think they were so shocked at how inept United were and just couldn't get a grip of any of our players. And when you're playing against a team that's in form, confident, and has quality, you've got to put a shift in. And in fairness, in the derby where they did get beat by a similar score at the Etihad, they did put a shift in there. They did give it a go, but at home, I would have been embarrassed as a United fan. It was so one-sided. It's the most one-sided derby I've ever been in, both in the men's and the women's game. It was that bad.
And we look at the numbers as well that City are posting, as we say about they've had a solid defence. I mean, just looking through the last month or so of results: 3-0 against United, 5-2 against Spurs, 4-0 against Sheffield United, 6-0. Okay, bottom of the table Leicester, but they've scored the goals there. Like they are really putting the ball in the net with I'd say alarming regularity for the rest of the league.
Well, it is. I mean, 55 goals is a high number in WSL. Don't forget we play less games in the WSL, so it's getting towards the equivalent of the 100 that the men scored. It's very much in that territory. I don't want to. I'm not always don't want to make too many comparisons in the men's game and the men's club, the men's team, but it's getting around the same sort of standards of 100 goals in the Premier League. That's the level they're working at. I mean, every time they go forward, they look like they're going to score. It's one of those strange things in football that every time they go forward, even against good sides, they look like they're going to score. And that's what you pay your money for, isn't it? You want to be entertained, and this season has been incredibly entertaining. I would urge anyone that has maybe never been to a WSL game or City game, come along. See what you think. It's so entertaining. They play with such freedom and passion and deadly intent. I think that it's money well spent. I love it. This season's been fantastic.
Yeah, and of course, the WSL takes a break over Easter because it's the FA Cup on Easter Monday. Birmingham away. Is that? I mean, this is one of those kind of whisper it quietly moments, but they're in a really good position in the league. They're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Just how successful could this season be if things go to plan?
Well, there's every chance of doing the double. There's every chance of getting to the FA Cup final. I mean, I'm not going to be one of those people who goes, "Oh, it's only Birmingham." Birmingham is second in the WSL too. They're playing well. I think they're on a run of 7 games undefeated. They're playing with confidence. It's at St Andrews, one of the most historic grounds in the country. There'll be a big crowd in. They've been pushing it hard. It won't be an easy tie. But if you beat Birmingham, then basically it's likely it's going to be us, Liverpool, Chelsea and Arsenal. So if you draw at Chelsea or Arsenal and you beat them, you've taken out one of your big rivals and you get to the final. So, the way they're playing at the moment, there's every chance, without, wanting to show any disrespect at all to Birmingham, because, that's not going to be an easy tie. If you get through, there's every chance of getting back to Wembley. And, it's every football fan, every player wants to be at Wembley. There's nothing like it. It is unique in world football. I've been there, seen them win twice, seen them lose once. And I'd be confident of going back. And the way they're playing at the moment is every chance of doing the double. It's there to be taken this season.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that 4th ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Listen to it, drink it in.
That was Paul Clarke from the Man City Women Fancast. We've got some listener questions to do before we finish. Get in touch on Blue Sky at bluemoonpodcast.com. The email address is contact@bluemoonpodcast.com, and you can find us on Instagram as well, which is where we start, because Peter's been in touch to say, what do you think of Thomas Tuchel's comments about Phil Foden? Is it a worry if he's looking good in training but can't replicate it on the pitch? Now, I went hunting for Thomas Tuchel saying this because I thought it'd be really nice to play the audio in at this point of Thomas Tuchel in the press conference doing this. And I watched that England press conference post-match afterwards about 2 or 3 times and could not find anywhere he said this. So I think he's given this interview to the papers. So I'm going to have to read it out, which is always it doesn't add the same flavour that I want to do. But Tuchel said, obviously he didn't have a lot of minutes for City recently. Then he came to camp with the brightest smile and was so good in training. And I thought he would just surprise us and we'll play with the same verve and excitement. But yeah, he struggles to have the full impact. Tom, that's quite a damning assessment, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised he actually said that, to be honest. It kind of feels like every World Cup there's always a kind of City England player who everyone's not happy about, because it was Raheem Sterling, I remember, a couple of years ago. My thing with Foden is that I feel like obviously he's incredibly talented, incredibly technically gifted, and I think in the City kind of system, obviously he's not been excellent this year, but picking the ball up in those tight spaces, like receiving it and then driving away. Like there's no one better than that, really. I don't think in the City squad, maybe even in the Premier League. From what I've seen of Tuchel's England, there's not a lot of that going on. So maybe he's not kind of, the kind of expressive, Cole Palmer kind of type player that you want in that number 10 instead. But yeah, I'm obviously with Foden. He's been at the club for so long now. He's kind of one of us. I'm always going to be on his side. So I want to see him for England in the summer. But if it doesn't work in Tuchel's system, then so be it, I guess.
Yeah, is it a worry kind of broader term, Ciaran? Because he obviously had his struggles last season with City. This season, it looked like he was back to his best pre-Christmas, and then again, like he can't hit the form again, can he?
Yeah, and I think reading between the lines, it does seem to be, an uphill struggle for him mentally. which is why the comments from Tuchel are so disappointing. He came to camp with the biggest smile. I'm so good in training, and then he just hits him with something so that mentally and psychologically damaging. He seemed really happy, but he was shit. So I'm going to say something that really makes him unhappy again. I don't think that's.
It's a real contrast, isn't it, to Guardiola's comments, where Guardiola consistently, whenever he's asked about him, consistently says, "We'll give him the time. He'll be back in time. He'll be back when he's back," sort of thing.
Guardiola, talks about him like he's his son, and Tom talked about the idea that he's one of us and he's one of our own. That's the way all the fans think about him. We're all so proud of him, and I'm obviously not a Manchester native, but the fact that he's a Stockport boy and come up through the academy and always been a City fan, it just, obviously there's going to be a different relationship, with club and country there, but I just don't think that would be productive, helpful, or just useful at all to build on Foden's, to build his confidence back up or to help. People tend to document online how he doesn't get past to, and again, kind of linking to Tom, you don't know whether it's just you've got your City hat on there and you're going, people, you just see your own player and you feel anger and ire towards how they're treated, but it is being brought up by City fans predominantly that he doesn't get past to.
I used to feel like that about Sean Wright-Phillips before the advent of social media, that he never got the ball in it for England. It's like, just give him the ball, he's great. And then, but I'd know where to vent it because there was no Twitter or whatever.
Well, there's plenty of venting about it, as far as Foden's concerned. So, I don't really watch international football at all. And I don't really bother with England until the big tournaments. So, I can't kind of confirm that, but he hasn't.
Just realised I'm asking an Irishman about England. I'd never once considered.
But that's it, isn't it? We're talking about it. It is the sort of dichotomy there between his performance for club and his performance for country, and how the two managers nurture him, look after him, and what people do in positions of management, football father figures, people who have to bring him back to himself. The contrast and kind of approaches. Because at the end of the day, what club and country want to see is Foden playing well again. And that smile on his face that has been referenced there and then kind of dangled and dashed by Tuchel. You want to see the smile on his face, more so than just the literal kind of smile on his face, to actually feeling happy within himself again and, emitting kind of... the joy in his football that was so associated with him. Do you remember those there was videos, or I don't even know if there were videos, or just sort of anecdotal kind of things where he'd go to the park and or he'd just pick up a ball when kids were playing football on his way home, and he would just join in, and he just seemed to love the game, and that seems to have been last summer as well. And just comments like that from Tuchel, and now the anxiety of wondering whether he's even going to be on the plane. But he's amazing. He's incredible. He's a generational talent, and it would seem foolish to leave him behind because what he can do. So if I was Tuchel, my plan would be to just be doing everything you can to support him and nurture him and improve his mental health, and then instruct my players to pass to him maybe, and that would hopefully kick him on, and everybody wins then.
I think with international football as well, it's all about individual games, right? You've not got a whole league season to contend with. It's about, can somebody come on and win you a game? And I think Foden can do that because of, the left-footed shot from the edge of the box, as we were saying, picking up the ball, being confident. And I think he's worth taking for that and that alone, even if he's not going to start. You can bring him on, you're up against a team who are defending really deep. He can unlock that for you. So I think if I was Tuchel, definitely bring him. But I do agree with Ciaran that, probably not the best way to go about getting him on side is to say what he said.
I'm interested in this. Ciaran, you might not have a view on this, given that you don't live in Manchester and you're obviously not from these parts. But you said grew up in Stockport, and my mind instantly went, in the shadow of the pyramid. And I'm just wondering, Tom, is the pyramid? Is the pyramid in your mind? Is it the cooperative pyramid or is it the Royal Noir pyramid?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a co-op. Yeah.
It's the co-op pyramid, isn't it? Yeah, I did wonder. Kieran, have you got any idea?
Even I knew that, yeah.
What's happened to the pyramid?
No. Fill me in exactly, and maybe the listeners would avail of this too.
So it used to be the Co-op Bank, and now it's just a massive Indian restaurant called the Royal Nawab.
Oh.
But if you ever want curry in a pyramid, Stockport is the place to go. I've always said that.
So it's an Indian restaurant, but everybody just still calls it the Co-op.
Well, this is. I wondered if it was like the MEN Arena, which hasn't been the MEN Arena for so long. Is it the AO Arena now, or is it just Manchester? I don't know, but it seems like to all of us,
it's now the M&S Bank Arena, and as if anybody's calling it that, like.
Nobody's calling it that, are they? Right, we are derailing this show, so let's finish with this. Nico O'Reilly got this is from Chris on the emails. Nico O'Reilly got another brace in the cup final, and all the attention goes on hat tricks. I always loved that Sergio Aguero's first and last goals were part of a brace, and that his debut mirrored his final game. Do you have any favourite braces? Well, Chris, it's your lucky week because Kieran's wanted to do something on braces for a long time. He's been off work. The international break has happened, so let's do it. Here we go.
Before we begin, let's get strict with our definitions. For the purposes of the next few minutes, when we say a brace, what we mean is 2 goals, and only 2 goals, scored by the same player in a game. We're not going to include any times when that player has added a 3rd, 4th or 5th. And, since Chris's question mentioned Sergio Aguero, that's where we'll start.
The first goal's superb. I mean, I still think the way that he's arched himself and arched his back and everything into it, that ball, he was so in control of that. The second one, I mean, just even thinking about it, it's just, it's a beauty, isn't it? That ball is like a rocket. It's swerved, it's dipped. It isn't one of those, I lit it and hope. That had one destination.
That's City fan Dan Burns on the podcast way back in 2011, speaking about Aguero's debut. He scored a brace against Swansea, coming off the bench to launch his career at the Etihad. On his final appearance there a decade later, Aguero scored his 37th brace for the club, again coming off the bench, this time against Everton. Richard Burns was on the show after that game.
It's just sad that he's going because you sort of feel sometimes like somebody's going to be there forever, because the absolute constant in watching City over the last decade has been Sergio Aguero scoring goals. I don't think there's been a bigger constant than that, other than knowing that the Blue Moon podcast is coming every Thursday or every Friday. Like it's just a magnificent footballer.
No player in City's history has more braces than Aguero's 37. Although you'd expect Erling Haaland will catch him in the not too distant future. He's already on 27, just 10 behind Aguero, and, like Aguero, Haaland's first brace came on his debut. Adam Carter from Stat City was impressed.
It was such a surreal feeling when he went put through. I was just like, yeah, goal, 2-0, job done. Everyone's happy, even with the penalty. And you know from our recent penalty stats that's never been a given in the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, that'll need coaching out of him, won't it?
Exactly. Ruined our preconceived ideas of what was going to happen there, didn't it?
Aguero and Haaland are the top 2 brace scorers for City. And there are only 7 more who have scored more than 20 braces in their careers with the club. Tommy Johnson and Francis Lee have 24, Horace Barnes and Joe Hayes have 23, and Tommy Rowell, Billy Gillespie and Alec Hurd have 20. Even the legendary goalscorer from the 1920s and 30s, Eric Brook, only managed 19. This is City fan Harry Bramble speaking in about 2002 about watching Brook play.
I think that in 2 most entertaining players that have ever played for City were Tilson and Brook. They were absolutely fantastic, particularly Brook, because he used to never stop. If they weren't giving him the ball, they used to go and get it. The Retton, he used to put on 10 of 20,000 for away fixtures. He had such a reputation.
Gary James explains more about what Brook brought to City.
He played on the wing, if you like. I mean, obviously it's a traditional formation. However, what was different about Eric was that he liked to roam. He was known as a roaming sort of player. And because he was only 5'6", quite often he'd suddenly pop up in like the centre forward position, surprise everybody, and then head a goal. He was well known for his sort of bullet headers. The great Stanley Matthews talked about Eric Brook as having a an head of iron. And, you know, the fans that I did talk to who remember him do talk about Eric Brook just being the sort of player that would fight to get the ball, and then he would use his force and be dynamic and so on, and really put the opposition under pressure.
Let's go right back to the start now and get the numbers. City's first ever brace was scored by Mitchell Calvey in a 4-1 win over Port Vale at Hyde Road back in September 1894. It was just their third ever game as Manchester City, after the club was formed that summer, and it was the first of 1,076 braces that would be scored by 249 different players. What started with Calvey at Hyde Road has now reached Nico O'Reilly at Wembley 132 years later. On last week's show, Casey spoke about O'Reilly's 2 goals in the cup final.
He was very composed, and don't get me wrong, he looked like he very thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not saying, you know, he tempered his celebration at all, but he definitely presented himself as if this is the start of much more to come. Both goals very intelligent. Like, I think you've described it as ghosting into the box, but I think he's very clinical. If he sees the space, he will take advantage of it.
Some players, like Aguero, Haaland and Brook, often scored more than a brace during their City careers. But for others, 2 in a game was as good as it got. There are 158 players that never managed to turn a brace into a hat-trick or better, with some notable names like Ilkay Gundogan, Sean Wright-Phillips, Dennis Law or David Silva among them. One of the most famous, though, is Josko Gvardiol, especially as, on a brace, he rejected the chance to take a 96-minute penalty when City were 3-0 up away at Fulham in 2024. The Sun's Martin Blackburn could understand why, though.
You've not had many Premier League defenders who've got a hat-trick, have you? So it must have been tempting for him just to. I think he would have scored it, to be honest. But yeah, it was a good. It was the right call, wasn't it? I mean, it's not going to go down to goal difference now, I don't think, is it? But you know, potentially it could have done had results gone slightly differently since then. So. Give it to the guy who you think is going to score.
On the reverse side of the coin, there are 9 players who've scored nothing else but a brace for City. Most are from decades ago, but more recently, Brahim Diaz and Jack Rodwell both scored braces for City and never scored any more or less in any other games. Paul Atherton spoke on the podcast about Rodwell's brace against Norwich on the final day in 2013.
We questioned Mancini's signings in the summer, and Rodwell was one we never really mentioned because he was always injured. And what I like about him is the fact that he's good going forward and defending. I found he's fast and he can pass, so he just shot rather than cutting back into his right foot.
No team has conceded more of City's braces than West Bromwich Albion, closely followed by Burnley, Wolves and Manchester United. In the top flight, City have 685 braces, with 197 in the Premier League. The first of those was by David White against Norwich, with the most recent by Nico O'Reilly against Newcastle. In Europe, there have been 36 braces, the majority of which have been in the Champions League. Yaya Toure got the first against Villarreal in 2011. Meanwhile, in the FA Cup, City have a total of 74 braces, with the most recent coming in the last round as Omar Marmoush scored twice against Newcastle. It would be good if that total could be increased on Saturday, because when a City player has scored a brace against Liverpool, they've not been on the losing side in more than 100 years.
Hi, I'm Paul Walsh, and you're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast.
Your favorite local grocery stores like Kroger, Ralph's, Fred Meyer, and more are now delivering on Uber Eats. Get 40% off your order of fresh, quality ingredients. Whether you just got home to an empty fridge or suddenly got a craving to whip up something new, you can get everything you need delivered in as little as 25 minutes. Get 40% off your order with code Kroger2026. Plus, members get $0 delivery fees. Order now on Uber Eats. Orders of $30 or more save up to $25. Ends 4/30/26. See app for details.
You can listen to the show ad-free by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
So, Ciaran, it seems remiss not to make you do that and then not ask you first. What, like, for your favourite City braces of all time? I'm interested, like, just gut instincts from those that you can think of off the top of your head. 2 high quality goals scored by one player in a game. Go.
Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, against Newcastle in 2012. That just ticks all the boxes of what a brilliant brace is. In terms of the level of importance, so it's an interesting. A brace is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because, like, sometimes it's 4-0 and somebody gets a brace in and amongst that. But sometimes it's 2-0 and the brace is everything. It's so crucial. So Nico O'Reilly the other weekend, and for me the Yaya one in 2012, just the quality of those goals, showing off just the versatility of his skills, how much of a clutch player he was, and how vital it was in as it was getting towards the end of the season. So yeah, they were great. There are some. I mean, I think Balotelli's brace in the 6-1 is forgotten about, kind of because you associate why always me, and then obviously the scoreline and the 60,000 empty seats. But that was a lovely little brace.
The first goal of that brace is a lovely finish.
Oh, it's class. Yeah. And obviously Dzeko got the brace in that as well. But it got me thinking about some of the Dzeko braces are like so class. Because in 2014, the Everton Goodison game.
He's not remembered for a brace in that game, is he? Let's be honest.
So I think I'm associating Dzeko's brilliance in that game with obviously what he's remembered with, which was having a kip on the pitch for about 10 minutes. But yeah, that was dead important. And then of course you've got like Gundogan against Villa on the last day. That huge. So it's a funny one.
Gundogan FA Cup final.
Of course, yeah. And that class goal that De Bruyne scored against Arsenal in the 4-1, where Haaland led his hair loose. Everybody kind of just remembers the first one because it was it was early, it was absolutely like insane scenes, and it was a gorgeous finish. But he got another one later as well. So just these amazing players who.
I thought for a second you were going to sing "Amazing Brace."
Well, I was looking at the kind of etymology of the word. Have you ever wondered why it's called a brace?
No, why?
So
God, he's got into English teacher mode here.
I know, I really have. It is international break boredom sets in. So it's through Old French from Latin brachia, meaning arms. So like a pair of arms kind of thing. Yeah. But it also is like an etymological cousin of bra, so like that BRA kind of idea. So
yeah,
when you're commenting and you're like chuffed about a lovely pair of goals, there has that link with. I was thinking if I brought that up, it's probably the first boobs reference on the Blue Moon podcast in all these years.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, nobody's got the transcripts of every show we've ever done, but I think it's the first time the word bra's been used on the podcast.
There we are. Who said international break doesn't pop up with surprises like?
Yeah. Tom, I mean, Ciaran's run through a load there. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head of two good quality goals is a really painful game because the Manchester derby that City lost 4-3 at Old Trafford with Michael Owen. Craig Bellamy's 2 goals in that are fantastic.
So good. The first one is unbelievable, isn't it? Like properly drilled into the top corner. But yeah, we can't bring that one up. I don't think. I think it's weird. I really enjoyed this question because it's not the kind of thing you can just look up. I'm so impressed by Ciaran's research for that audio bit we just did, because if you type in Manchester City hat tricks, you get a load come up, but Manchester City brace, just like dentist stuff, isn't it? But yeah, off the top of my head, weirdly, the first one that came to mind. So we beat Tottenham 6-0 in 2015. And do you remember who scored it?
I've just had a memory of who scored this brace. Yeah. He jumped the corner flag. Fantastic.
That's the one. Jesus Navas.
How bad must Spurs be that they let Jesus Navas score a brace against them?
I just love it because A, what is Jesus Navas doing scoring a brace? B, the first goal is so weird because it's kind of after about 20 seconds, Lloris pushes it out wide after a good save, and then he just kind of first time clips it in off the back post as if it was like a cross. And then
this is the thing that came up recently, this goal actually, and like somebody said to me, like, do you think he was shooting? And I kind of said, if you watch the video, he has to be shooting because there's nobody in the box. There's nobody, like, you can't be crossing it to anybody.
But that was Navas, wasn't it? Crossing it to nobody. So, but yeah, and also the fact it was the 35 seconds in and then 92 minutes when he completed it. So it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours between his 2 goals.
There must be a stat on that.
There is, because unfortunately, I always thought it might be the longest time between 2 goals in a single game, but it didn't break the record for it. Marouane Chamakh had done longer for Arsenal, like a couple of years earlier. It's mad.
The only other one I'd say was as another De Bruyne one against Arsenal. So he scored 2 amazing goals away in a 3-0 win with about 20 minutes of each other at the start, and then he almost scored a hat-trick. It was about 30 minutes in, and it was a save that tipped it onto the bar from about 25 yards. And I think if that would have gone in, that would have just been the best hat-trick ever.
Best hat-trick of all time, yeah.
But ultimately, it's a brace.
Yeah. If we have
it would be remiss of me
at
at this point, Tom, by the way, sorry to say that wasn't my research, and David will be bubbling if I let that one go.
Okay.
He researched, wrote the script.
I wasn't going to say anything because it breaks the illusion that you did all the work for that, because it sounds like you did all the work for that, and that's the point of that bit, is to sound like you did all the work.
I would
for
have been happy to, but yeah, no, I couldn't let that go. Like, I could see you biting the old.
Well, in that case, since we're all being very honest, can I then say it would be very remiss of me not to mention Adam from Stat City, who a few months ago basically sent me his entire database of games and goals. So I just asked my partner Sam, who works in data, so understands how to use Microsoft Excel to make pivot tables that show me how to filter out different things. And so I just made a list of every City player that had scored a brace ever, and filtered everything else out. And then I was able to just look at the stats from there and go, okay, well, how many did it on a Saturday? How many did it against Manchester United? How many did it on this, like that? It's Adam's database that did it for me. So while you're thanking me, I'll thank Adam. There we are. We'll have a nice, lovely love in to finish.
No, well done, everyone.
Yeah. If we have missed your favourite brace, or you can think of ones that we didn't include here, then get in touch at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky. Email contact@bluemoonpodcast.com. The Instagram, just search for us there, Blue Moon Podcast. And that is it for today's episode. Thank you very much to my guests for this one, Ciaran Murray.
Cheers, Blue.
And Thom Harris.
Thanks very much for having me on.
There is a clip of this week's Nostalgia episode coming up shortly. That was Casey, Adam Monk and Ali Fogg thrashing out some controversial topics in Agree to Disagree. They were tackling things like the booing of James Milner, whether Ryan Cherky will score the most outrageous goal ever, and if John Stones gets the credit he deserves for what he's done at City. If you want to hear the full thing now, then just head on over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com. I'll be back again next week, so I'll see you then.
That was the Blue Moon Podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon. You'll also get an extra episode each Monday. Here's a clip of this week's.
Hasn't he got like the joint record for the most successful dribbles in a Champions League final ever?
The other one's Messi as well, I think.
Yeah,
I think
that's one of those viral posts, isn't it? It's like, tell us a football fact that doesn't sound true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's appreciated the right amount. Certainly in my house anyway, because like as I say, my daughter's 7. She doesn't really like football, but she loves John Stones. Teddy bear's called John Stones, and she always sings his biggies from Barnsley and he's number 5 around the house. So he's definitely appreciated in my house.
I wonder if John Stones is the footballer that has the most strange things named after him, because Bernardo Silva's dog is called John Stones as well.
Yeah. So, I thought you were going to refer to the John Stones paint trophy as well.
Well, there is that. I mean, you can't argue with a legacy like that. I mean, yeah. Ali, the other side of Stones here, like Casey said, the redemption arc for him in 2020, City basically said, "Can you just go, please, mate?"
Yeah, the redemption arc is marvelous. I think he would have been a great player if it hadn't, or it would have been one of the all-time great players if it hadn't been for his injury record. Is actually a reasonably fair assessment of John Stones, because what he did achieve was absolutely phenomenal.
You can listen to more of that at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. And join us again next time for another episode.